Hi there, my name is Miss Maisie. I'm a teen librarian with the Naperville Public Library, and today we're going to be sewing our own merit badge style patches. Let's get started. For this craft, you'll need 2 colors of felt, a pen or pencil, at least 2 colors of embroidery thread, an embroidery needle, and some scissors. I also think it can be helpful to have some scratch paper or a small notebook. The first thing you're going to do is, again, grab that scratch paper or notebook. You can even use the side of your paper bag your kit came in, and draw out some of the potential designs you want to see. Personally, for me, one of my big things I'm highlighting for myself this summer is I finished a ton of books that were 500 pages or more. And since these are kind of brag badges, they're showing off our accomplishments, I'm gonna make a 500 plus pages badge. When you're making your design, it can be helpful to think of kind of straight lines because you're gonna have to recreate that using your embroidery thread. The next thing you're going to do is grab your pen or pencil and your lighter shade of felt, and we're just gonna lightly sketch out our design onto our felt so you have an idea of where we need to sew. And again, kind of a more boxy design is going to be easier to read and then easier to reproduce. Next, we're going to thread our first color. I'm using kind of my cream colored first. I'm using a cream and a dark purple. And then once you've got it pulled through a fair amount, you're going to go down to the end of your long thread, wrap it around your finger a couple times, then kind of roll it off and pull it tight to create a knot at the end of your thread. Then you're going to take your needle and your thread. You're going to come in from the back. This is going to be helpful where you're kind of seeing where your pattern is. You're going to pull it all the way through. So you've got that knot tight up at the back of your design. There's a lot of different stitches you can use for your pattern. I'm just going to use some basic ones, but if you're interested in learning more, I really recommend looking at the embroidery tutorials on our database Creative Bug. Creative Bug's nice because they use a whole variety of they present a whole variety of different crafts. So it can be really helpful to kind of try and figure out new techniques for things you're already interested in. So again, for me, I'm just sort of taking the edges of this design. I'm going big stitches across because I'm trying to create that kind of page quality. All right, so once I've got my kind of tan, creamy colored embroidered and I'm good with how this is looking, I'm gonna come around on back. I'm going to work my needle through one of the little stitches I've already made. Pull that through. Pull my needle through one of the loops I've already made, or that loop I just formed, and pull this tight so I can tie it off. And then I'm gonna cut. I'm gonna leave a little bit of tail just to make sure I'm good to go. We can always trim this more later. So now I've got the general shape of my pages done. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna take my dark purple, and I'm gonna outline that and then do my letters. So once again, I'm gonna thread my needle. Sometimes if I'm struggling with threading my needle, I'll just quickly stick the end of it, or end of the thread in my mouth to get it wet so it lies a little more flat. So you can see I accidentally pulled the threads apart. So wetting it can help with that. All right, there we go. Again, pull down a section of it and we'll go all the way to the end. Again, just wrap it around your finger a few times. Roll it off nice and tight, pull it, So you've got a knot at the end. So now I'm gonna outline my pages and I'm gonna make the bottom thicker so it looks more like a book. But to start this, once again, I'm going in from the bottom, pulling all the way tight. And I'm gonna do kind of a slightly different style of stitching. So I'm gonna make a small stitch and then I'm gonna come in back through the back, kind of in the middle of that stitch I just made. Make another small stitch. And I'm going to do that same sort of chaining all the way up my book spine, just to get a nice clean line. You can see here I'm kind of using my hands to pull the felt taut. The nice thing about felt is it doesn't have a lot of stretch and give, which means we don't really need an embroidery hoop to embroider on it, but it does mean we have to do a little more propping with our hands. And you can see as it's working up, that's kind of a cleaner line than these are, because this I wanted that lined quality of paper, but here I want more of that thick quality of like a hardcover book. I'm going to do the same thing all around these pages. You want to make sure you're pulling your thread all the way taut, all the way through, because you don't want it to accidentally start kind of catching on things. Through here. We have this. You can see I got a little close to where my 5 vaguely is. The reason we draw on so lightly is to make sure if we have to move things, we absolutely can. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to come up through the bottom and go slightly over where the pages sit. Now, for these sides, I want it to be a slightly lighter look. So I'm not going to do as thick of a line. I'm going to go in from the center here, right into that stitch, from the edge here, right into that stitch. One of the things I really like about embroidery is you can kind of play around with different techniques yourself to sort of see the ways they give you a different weight to your design, the ways they give you a different texture to your design. Again, you can check out those, real stitches on Creative Bug, but you can also really kind of make it up as you go. I once had an art teacher describe embroidery as like doodling or drawing with a needle instead of a pen. And I think that's like the best description I've ever heard, because it's so true. So we've got part of a page outlined. I'm gonna actually go up here, go up back through the top, through that center area. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. There. And I can tell I'll need to shift up where my 5 sits a little, but that is okay. That's why we draw lightly. And then down here where the book is thickest, it's kind of where the angle would be, I'm gonna do a series of kind of small stitches up to the bottom of that page to get that thicker look. So I'm gonna do little flat stitches, one next to the other. And again, there's just so many different ways to kind of change the look and appearance of your embroidery, which is one of my favorite things about it as a medium. All right, just like before, when I've reached the end of my purple, you can see I've got my little book shape. I'm gonna go around to the back. You can see my back looks a little messy. The nice thing is no one's gonna see it. So it is okay if it is messy. I know some people are so perfectionist about the back of their embroidery, and that is awesome for them. It could not be me. I'm more focused on getting the front to look nice. And pull it tight. Again, we're gonna cut it with a little bit of that tail. So now we're gonna move on to our letters. We're gonna take, you can switch back to your lighter color. I'm gonna stay with my darker color here. So I'm gonna kind of lightly sketch out a new position for my 5. This can be the hardest part, you know, because letters and numbers, they kind of look the most, like they have the most unique shape. We expect letters and numbers to look one way. So one of the things I like to do is I'll do longer stitches along the edge and connect at each point. And I'm actually, if you can see, I'm going back up in through the hole I made for part of this number already. So it looks really tight and full. And I go back down, and then each time I come back up from the top, or from the back, and then go back in from the front. Because this, you know, the 5 and the 0 are gonna have these curved shapes. The smaller your stitches, the more stitches you add, the more rounded it's gonna look. You know, again, I want to kind of avoid the edge of my book pages. So I'm going to make sure I'm coming in from the top. You know, the nice thing is if you end up not liking how part of it works, you can always use your scissors, kind of clip the thread out and re-embroider over that area. I'm trying to keep them relatively close to the same size. So, you know, I'm not letting this one get any taller than my 5 was. Again, there's a lot of different techniques you can do for embroidering letters and numbers. This is just the way I personally like to do it, because I think it kind of creates a solid shape and it makes it easier to sort of read them overall. I've seen some people do really delicate like chain stitching to create cursive, and that's, again, that's great, but that can be a little more time consuming and sometimes can be a little less readable. See, we've got our 5, 0, one more 0. Here we go. All right, so once you've got your pattern doll embroidery, I've got my 500 plus pages, I've got my little book. We're gonna turn it over to the back, which again, it's just not gonna look as pretty. And we're gonna trace out or draw out a rough circle. You're gonna wanna make sure you're not crowding any of the stitches you've made. We're gonna go in with our scissors. And we're gonna trim out our circle. can flip it over, kind of even out any little miscuts, make it look a little bit cleaner. We're gonna take our second color, and the trick here is you want this to be about 1 centimeter to 1/4 inch bigger. So what I like to do is I lie down my original, I trace around it just lightly. Then cut out that circle. Now we have our 2 circles, so the next thing we're going to do is attach them. All right, so for this, I'm coming back in with my cream. I've got it threaded, I've got a knot at the end, and I'm going to come in towards the edge here, and then go about the same length over into the purple, and create a stitch here. Then I'm gonna go just a little ways over, do the same thing. And I'm just gonna do this all the way around until the 2 parts of my patch are attached. Just like I did before, when I'm done sewing, I'll go in, go through one of my pre-existing loops, go through another loop here, pull it tight. One of the things with kind of the distance we've got here, you're creating another loop and then you want to go through and tie it a second time. We're going to trim off, again, that excess tail. And now you've got your patch. You can attach it to a jean jacket, a backpack, a tote bag, whatever you want. I've even seen people put like a pin back on here so they can pin it to different outfits. But you've got your patch. You can brag about all the accomplishments you had this summer and celebrate the cool things that make you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you join us for another craft again soon. Thanks. Bye.